Well, Johnny Mercer MP is on the Health Select Committee. Good afternoon.
Hi.
John Ashworth was talking there about weaponising the NHS. It's something that parties on all sides are guilty of, and I know that you've signed that letter that went to Theresa May asking for cross-party talks. But before we get on to that specifically, should today have been all about Boris and what Boris has been saying?
Look, I think we need to have a grown-up discussion. I think it's good to have a discussion in public about what the NHS is going to look like in 10, 15 years' time. I do think this is the sort of generational challenge of my generation of politicians, if you like, how we manage expectations, how we meet the demand. People aren't making it up when they say more money is going to health service than ever before. It is. But demand is just going through the roof, and people look to us as politicians and vote for us and pay our wages to try and meet these challenges. And, it's interesting what Boris says, and I think we do need to have a conversation around funding for the NHS, yes.
So you support him?
Well, what he chooses to do in Cabinet is absolutely no interest or business of mine whatsoever. I would encourage anybody to have a conversation about what we're going to do around the NHS. I go out on the doors on a regular basis in Plymouth, and, this is the top, if not near the top of the issues that are discussed. Lots of people use the NHS. Everyone knows someone working in it or using it. It's an extremely emotive issue that I think over the years has been completely sort of weaponised. And, I heard a chap there, I think it was John Ashworth, saying the Tories have done this, the Tories have done that. Everyone's sort of sick of that, and they want to know, well, how are we going to sort this out? Because this is a problem that we all know is there, but no one's really coming forward with any solutions. And until we get to that point, the sort of whinging and bickering gets a bit tedious.
Yeah, I mean, it's a noble message, but when even Boris Johnson is briefing that he's concerned that the Conservatives are, again, he's using a military term, abandoning the territory, what does that say?
Well, that's for Boris to answer. I mean, I've made my views on that very clear. I do think that if we don't step up to the plate and get our fundamentals right around the health service, around defence and things like that, we will find ourselves with a bit of a reality check at the ballot box. And, for me, clearly that's something I'm going to do everything I can to avoid.
So what about that letter that was signed by you, by Labour MPs, Lib Dem MPs? It went to Theresa May. You asked for cross-party talks and, well, the response hasn't been particularly warm, has it?
Yeah, I mean, the response was disappointing. There's no point varnishing that. I think, we had a conversation actually before the last election about doing this, but that got kind of subsumed by the events in 2017 and that election. I do... we've just had Jeremy Hunt in committee this afternoon, and he says, it might be overambitious to take politics out of the NHS because people are always going to have a different view about how social care can be done and so on. But I do think until we take the politics out of it and we somehow get the discussion to a place where it can't be sort of used and abused by people to make political points, we're not going to have that mature discussion that people who use the NHS and people who work in the NHS, that's what they deserve. It's all right us having these conversations, but people go out and they work and they graft every day in the NHS and they rely on the NHS for fundamental parts of their lives, and we have a duty to get on with this and not sort of kick it into the long grass.
You sound frustrated.
Well, it is, I don't mean to sound frustrated. I'm very sort of passionate about meeting the issues of the day. That's what we're here for. I didn't come into politics for a career or because I enjoy sort of being away from home. I want to face these challenges and get some answers to people who I represent. I think there are defining challenges we now face in this country, and I do, of course, want us to step up to the plate and meet them.
I was talking earlier to a head of one NHS trust. We'll hear that interview later in the programme, and he was saying that this is less about politicians talking about large amounts of money, but more about putting a coherent plan in place. He talked about, for example, the doctors and nurses that he would like to employ just not existing, not even being there to be taken on. It's a bigger issue than just bandying about numbers.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you can always talk about more money. That is, an answer. It's not the answer. I mean, you can always talk about resources. It's whether it's in the military or anything else. What's needed is a sort of strategic vision, a holistic overview of what health and social care looks like in 10 or 15 years' time. And if, people aren't stupid, I think the mistake of the sort of generation before me of politicians was treating people like they're stupid. People aren't stupid in this country. If we are going to live longer, if it is going to cost more, people do understand that they will have to pay for that. But we need to make the case. As our job as politicians, I think we sort of lost the art of articulating the argument and winning the argument and setting out a vision and getting people to believe in it. And that's what I want to see around health and social care, obviously. That's what I want to see around the military, and get politics back to where it should be.
Johnny Mercer MP, thank you. Conservative member on the Health Select Committee there.